Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Pluto conjunct one's natal Neptune. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Pluto, they could be about transformation, power, obsession, fixation, control, and when transit Pluto conjoins one's natal Neptune, well, this can manifest in transformation, power, obsession, fixation, control. It could be in one's dreams. Sometimes, sadly, it may manifest in the obliteration or destruction of one's dreams, or it might simply transform them at this time. It could be as well too. I mean, Neptune is about fantasy, and it might be something too. I mean, Pluto has some connection with sexuality. It might be a time where there might be some very powerful sexual fantasies one may be indulging in at this time. But it could also, sadly, it could give power to deception, this transit as well. But it might give you an ability to eliminate it and be able to see through subterfuge and superficiality and look deeply and be able, in order to find out, who are the deceivers, who are the real people in your life. As an example, and if this is in the 11th house, it could be matters with friends or acquaintances, or people that you know in some group, club, or organization. Neptune again could be about deception and duplicity, and this is about, it could be about gaining power over that at this time. Now, also to remember that Neptune is connected with drugs, alcohol, chemicals. Um, in some cases, you have to be very careful with this transit. Remember that Pluto is about death, and if you're somebody that is a habitual user, it could be a time that could be very significant, and you need to be very careful regarding this. Remember that transit Pluto, in many instances, doesn't even hit one's Neptune in a lifetime. Remember that transit Pluto takes a very long period to traverse all 12 zodiac signs. The thing about it is, I mean, I have my natal Pluto in Virgo, and right now, as many of you may know, transit Pluto is in Capricorn, and I'm 50 years old. Going to be 51 in like uh, 2.5 months. So that gives you an idea and conception, how long transit Pluto is going to even be last in your lifetime. You might be lucky if you experience it in 5 or 6 different signs. So the thing about it is, uh, you might, looking at this as well, could also be a time where, I mean, Neptune is about dissolving and dissipation. So it can be a time where you might have more, maybe control over something that might be dissipating in your life, or it could be at a time to where you might simply be obsessed or fixated over dissolving something. Let's say, in the figurative sense, like say if it's in your seventh house, or in Libra, it might be something with a relationship or a significant other. It can also be a time to where it's also, I mean, Neptune can be connected with idealism as well. And the thing is, it could also be, and Neptune is also associated with inspiration and its hope. So you might feel that, this could give more power to these things at this time. It can be maybe making a major transformation or change might inspire you at this time. Um, and it could maybe be in, somebody else's life, or trying to empower other people. It could be at this time as well. I mean, looking at this, I mean, anatomically speaking, Neptune is connected with the feet, the toes, the lymphatic, and immune system. So in some cases, it could be surgery on one of these things. It could be where, say, you might even be experiencing amputation in some cases of a toe or a foot at this time. That could be very isolated, but remember that this is a very significant transit, as again, many people don't even experience this transit during their lifetime. And the thing about this as well, I mean, Uh, you could also, I mean, Neptune is associated with isolation and escapism. So it can be a time where you might be escaping maybe some corruption, or there's some crime or something nefarious in your area. You might be, somewhat cowering at this time in order to get away from it. It could also be a time too. I mean, Neptune is associated with imprisonment, so it's a time as well where this could be, some cases, if you've been involved, if you may have been involved in some crime in very remote, isolated instances. It could be a plutonian crime. It could be something with insurance or something with taxes. I don't know if anybody can be incarcerated for some kind of tax issue, but anyway, it can be something as well. Looking at this, it's also, Neptune is connected with surrendering as well. So it might be where you might feel that at sometimes you might be instances, it could be relinquishing one's power or control over something. And also, excuse me, Neptune is also about forgiveness. And it could be something where you might be forgiving maybe a person that might have committed a crime against you, that might have caused maybe some trauma in your life. Pluto can be connected with trauma. Um, some isolated cases, it might even be some sexual abuse. Some isolated cases, person that might have manipulated you somehow. This could be an instance where you might feel this is about, forgiveness in connection with one or more of these things. Now, in some cases, too, it could also be about fixation or obsession with some kind of addiction at this time. Now, say if it's in Scorpio as an example, it could be a sexual addiction. Um, in some cases, too, I mean, if it's in Pisces, it could be something with drugs or alcohol or some chemical addiction. It could also be, as well, Pluto can be associated with deep research and investigation. So it might be something where you might be doing some deep research in matters connected with the less fortunate, or could be in drugs or alcohol usage. Now, say if this is in Capricorn, as an example, it might be, again, as I was stating before, it could be deep research that might be, for the less fortunate. So if it's in Capricorn as an example, it might be maybe deep research connected with depression and how that might correlate with the marginalized society as an example. Now, this could also be expressed in power struggles with Neptune people. It could be people that are in the metaphysical, which include astrology, spirituality, as some examples. Uh, it might be something where you're also looking at this. This could also be about a transformation that might be spiritual, or it might be something connected to the metaphysical, which could include astrology at this time. It could also be a time too where you might, I mean, Pluto is connected with crisis situations, so you might experience a crisis with flooding. It could be a chemical or some kind of gas leak, or even something with fraud. Say if this falls in the eighth house, it might be some kind of credit card or insurance fraud that you might have to deal with at this time. Um, Another thing too, another way that this transit may be expressed, it could be about the obliteration, it could be of body fat, it could be of an addiction, it might be simply by obliterate, maybe lethargy at this time. It might be something which could actually be good, because to me, a transit like that could actually be good for the physical body. Um, and also, say if it's an Aquarius, it might be eliminating or eradicating an internet or computer addiction at this time. Now, I don't want to sound overly morbid or morose, but keep in mind that these transits, I mean, again, they do not happen very often. I mean, you may be, It might not even happen in your lifetime. So this is a very, again, a very significant, important transit. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, this could also be about this transit may manifest in some cases as a death by sea. It could be through some drowning or flooding, maybe even perhaps even suicide in some cases. Neptune is associated with that. It could be some drug or alcohol usage. Uh, it could also be, again, as I was stating before, the surgical procedure could be on the feet, the toes, even the lymph nodes, or even the pineal gland. That can all be associated with Neptune. And at the same time as well, it could be a time where you could be very obsessed and fixated with Neptune, or say maybe Neptunian interests, poetry, for example, dancing, photography, the metaphysical, which includes astrology, chemistry, the paranormal. And you might be getting, it might be a time that could be auspicious for more support with a lot of compassion at this time, and it could be, and some Plutonian things like insurance or taxes that might cause more confusion at this time, may be somewhat nebulous and unclear. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.